I can't start this video without giving a huge thank you to everyone who supports the channel on Patreon. Not only are they bailing me out of shitty situations, they're helping to fund bigger projects such as this one. Projects I'm seriously passionate about making, so a huge round of applause to all of them. Now let's begin. So it's no secret at this stage that I'm a massive wrestling fan and have been for years now. One of the channels that actually inspired me to start getting into reviews, and more specifically, covering wrestling games, was Lion's Edge back in the day. But rather than sit there and talk about the games, I wanted to go all out with the AVGN treatment. Because that's honestly what it is, both to capitalise on the overly charismatic characters incorporated into the video, as well as it just being a good excuse to dress up and pretend I'm a wrestler for a day. The way this video idea come about is kind of interesting. I was here walking around my house one day in a really bad mood a few months back, and started working on some voices. I always liked to think I could do a good Macho Man, and I started working on a few lines, when next thing I knew, I was acting as if the camera was on as I began shooting ideas out as Macho. Doing so, I come up with the opening to the entire video, the quiz on the greatest wrestling game of all time, the punchline being a good joke to start the video. The more I worked at it, the more I liked it and realised that if I was going to do this, there had to be some level of fighting to happen. I liked the idea of Macho calling out the next spot, like they actually do in the ring, then diving off and knocking me to the ground as a hot start to the video. So based on that, I decided I wanted to do a wrestling review, get the Macho Man in and try to tell a story. Before anything though, I had to build the costume. Now Macho was a good choice to start with, as he has many different outfits to choose from. My personal favourite was always his WrestleMania 7 outfit, however, probably the end to the biggest wrestling angle of all time, and because of that, I believe it was the first Macho outfit I ever saw. Plus, it's arguably easier with only 2 colours. So, let's build the costume. We'll need some glasses. I found some protective goggles that suit perfect. We'll need a hat, some white ribbon, insulation or any other masking tape, silver duct tape, a can of white spray paint, and various paints used to make purple. I found all of these items at the local cheapo store, but we also need a white jacket and some white pants. Much like the previous costume I made, this resulted in searching the city high and low in second-hand stores, city missions and thrift shops. It's a lot of fun doing this, but normally proves a massive pain in the ass. And now it's time for Macho's first cosplay tip of the day. When searching for costume items, don't be afraid to try out the ladies section. Across the road from the cheapo store, we found a nice pair of old lady bowling pants that are perfect and cheap. So at every other store, Square-Eyed Jack would run straight to the women's section looking for a jacket. A little too keen if you ask me. Yeah. The hardest thing to find was the white jacket. Obviously most men won't wear a white jacket because stereotypes and history prove that we just get them dirty. And as usual, the final place you look after over an hour, we found a men's chef jacket that is perfect. Perfect style, perfect fit, and a perfect find because it was marked down half price, costing a whopping $3.50. Surprisingly, we were able to find everything we needed for the costume in a single trip, something I wasn't expecting. Now going into this, I wanted to upload the video around this year's SummerSlam while people are in the mood for wrestling. Getting home and contacting my channel manager from Screenwave, we decided that it wasn't a good idea uploading the video following the event and trying to compete with it. So instead, it had to go up a week beforehand. Meaning that the 2 weeks I had to get the costume ready was immediately cut down to 1 week. So no time could be wasted. Immediately, the first thing I did was cover the glasses with some insulation tape. What we're doing here is making a stencil for the design on the front. Alternatively, you could cut out the desired shape first and stick that on, but I prefer covering the object, drawing my design on and then removing the excess tape with a Stanley knife, to make an inverted stencil rather, only covering the parts I don't want painted. with a single coat of white spray paint and carefully removing the tape reveals that it worked pretty good. Now I simply colour in the reverse side with black permanent marker and clean up some edges on the front, and it's done. It looks really good, and yes, you can actually see through like sunglasses. A good start to this. Now onto the hat. What a fucking disaster! So the only thing close to the style we could find was a pirate hat. The plan was to paint it white, but as you can see here, the material was not accepting the paint, which, needing the thing done in a week's time, was a scary roadblock. Time for Macho's second cosplay tip of the day. If you're trying to give something a coat of paint, a single layer of paper mache over the object first will give you a rough but paintable surface. Dig it! At night in the freezing cold of the workshop, I gave the entire thing a single coat of paper mache and then followed that up with a coat of white spray paint. It's rough looking, but given the time constraints, there isn't time to waste crying over it. So now onto the biggest part of the build, painting the jacket and pants. Before getting anywhere near that, I referenced my images and even threw in a game that had the costume for a good 3D version. I marked off the edges of the purple space as well as cut out a bunch of shapes to stick on and save for white. This was a time-consuming process, but it's necessary. From there, I mixed some purple paint to the desired colour. Keep in mind, you should always mix your paints identically each time so that everything is the same colour. I had my mix at 1 portion of red, to half a portion of both blues, to a quarter portion of the lilac, and it's pretty good. Now with a paintbrush, you need to fill in your purple. Hold down the edges of your shapes to get some clean edges, and just be careful. Don't get any purple where it doesn't belong. After a single coat, then flipped and repeated on the back, the paint surprisingly worked perfectly and looks awesome. While waiting for it to dry, I got a pencil and outlined a pattern on the hat. Don't try masking anything like this, as removing tape will damage your paint job. So using a detail brush, colour in the purple space with leftover paint. The darker colour certainly helps to hide some of the more blatant imperfections. Once everything was dry, I peeled off the shapes and masking tape from the clothing to reveal, hey, it worked perfectly. So now, it's time for some final details. I measured out some ribbon that when wearing the jacket, almost touches the ground. Each arm could fit 8 pieces of ribbon, so 16 lengths in total. Then I simply used tape to stick them down. By now, I had the games played and the video written. The costume still wasn't finished and I was shooting the next day. The final thing that you can't forget is the fine details. The entire outfit has some silver trim alongside the purple and a silver sash on the hat. Using some silver duct tape, I measured thinner strips and marked out some edges, then cut all the way around. Now I had a roll of 4 long strips that I could lay down. I didn't have enough tape for the pants, but you can hardly notice. I wasn't making another trip back to the store. The fine detail for the hat was done by simply measuring out a template onto some newspaper, cutting it out and then covering it with tape, then cutting the excess tape off and securing it to the hat. It's simple and cheap, but it worked. So with everything together, the total cost of the costume was roughly the same as it cost to make Sly Cooper. This time without a prop, but more accurate to the original outfit. I already had a black female wig here for reasons, and with a long-deserved brushing, it was fine enough. I'm very happy with this overall, especially considering the bulk of this was done in 3 days, the entire thing over a week. It's far from perfect though. I need to stop using spray paint because it comes off very easily. Testing the hat and glasses, I was covered in white paint. So I added some tape on all the parts that were going to touch my nose and forehead, which worked, but not entirely. My favourite part was easily the glasses though. Looking at how much it costs for replicas, this was a very cheap outfit compared to what you'd pay for. The only problem with these were the fact that I could see through, but it's not recommended for extended periods of time as it left my eyes really strained for a few days. There were some other items that didn't get used, such as some silver glitter for the trimmings, but I actually prefer it how it is, to be honest. So during that entire process, I was also writing the video, and I knew that I wanted to make it as enjoyable for non-wrestling fans as much as it was going to be for hardcore smarky bastards. I picked my games like I wanted to give a brief history lesson, as well as looking for some shit wrestling games, because there are plenty out there. Covering 4 systems, 2 making their debut for Square Eyed Jack reviews, the games all offered much more to talk about than I had planned. This was only supposed to be a 12 to 15 minute video, but it surpassed 20 minutes. Nothing wrong with that, as it's better to get it all out than regret missing a good point or joke. The entire premise of the video is that Macho Man is a mark, Wrestle Talk for still believing it's real and buying into it, while Square Eyed Jack knows better. So Macho brings me all of these terrible games to try that are supposedly great when they're all terrible in reality, kind of like the classic good cop bad cop routine. I also wanted to capture the essence of local multiplayer, having a friend over, arguing over what to play next, backseat driving and someone cheating, the normal shit. But playing both characters on screen at the same time, with Macho having all these fucking streamers flying around, it's time to talk about what it took to shoot this video. This is easily the most complicated video I've done on YouTube. While I've had some shockers before, they were all shot within a day, or if not, I had help. But here, to pull off having the both of us in the room interacting, I had to resort to green screening. Shot over 2 days, that alone makes it near impossible to mask, before you even consider this fucking costume. I'd have to constantly get changed for each new shot, which wasn't happening. I had to shoot everything with myself in a single go, then go back and do Macho with the beard on. Alright, it's time for some Macho madness. What you're going to need is some pubic trimmings. As you can see, I've prepared mine earlier. They're not pubic trimmings. When I brushed the black wig, a lot of hair fell out of it, so I clumped it together and cut it up into fine pieces. Then, using some liquid latex, I coated my beard region for a single layer, then began adding a second layer, carefully adding beard to it piece by piece. Have you ever seen the finale to Jackass 2? Anyway, it looked rough at first, but quickly filled out, and I think it looks fine. No patch on a real beard, of course, but not really my area of expertise, as you can see. I'm back with one final macho tip of the day. Don't be a stupid idiot and apply liquid latex to a face already covered in shitty facial hair. That will suck later on. The beard was roughly 30 minutes to put on, and it took over an hour to get off later that day using powder. Because it's applied with liquid latex, I was able to make an actual prosthetic piece to use again in the future. It'll need some touching up, but that is a win. What's not a win is the amount of real hair glued into the back of this. Disgusting. But yeah, you can see why I had to shoot each character at a time. Knowing I'd have to use the green screen, I worked out beforehand that majority of the shots required Macho Man on the back layer and myself on the front. The trick here is nailing lighting and the camera angle, and luckily, most of these were done from the default position. Arguably, the trickiest shot of the entire thing was this one, where the 2 characters are deciding on a final game to play. I wanted this done in one long take, like 2 people are actually having a back and forth. If the entire video cut between each character as they spoke, it's a lot less real. You need these shots of both people on screen interacting as naturally as possible to help prevent it feeling fake. The problem here is that my tripod can't go taller than I am. A rare case. The bottom layer with Macho was fine. I put the tripod on top of my new computer, got an idea how it would look for Square Eyed Jack, then had to translate that to a green screen. After 20 minutes of messing around, stacking my camera on top of a janky box, on top of a ladder, I was able to get the correct angle as best as possible, shooting the entire scene at a 90-degree rotation within the room that it was actually happening at. Yeah, don't worry, I got confused too, a bunch of times. It worked though, and it's my favourite part of the video, followed close by Macho's promo. I realised that I can't have a wrestler in a video without them cutting a coked up, crazy, shouting promo. I'm no Randy Savage, of course, but I mixed in some of his classic lines into a speech related to the story of the video, and I'm really happy with it. Overall, the video turned out at a level of quality I wanted to hit when the idea first struck me. From the start of looking for a costume to finishing editing was a mere 13 days. That makes me absolutely sick. But not since the last time I dressed up have I worked on something that I just couldn't drag myself away from. And they're always the best videos because of that. The best for you guys because of the amount of effort going into it, and the best for the creator, as even though it's a lot of work, the payoff feels so much better than just sitting in front of a generic backdrop spouting the same boring shit every week. A trend I'd like to try and kill. And interestingly enough, being so focused on such a hectic script, these bigger videos seem to generate less outtakes and fuck-ups, which is kind of the opposite of what you'd expect. But was it all worth it? Not really. The video actually bombed, unfortunately. I can't say I've ever uploaded a review that didn't immediately impact my YouTube analytics, and this is because of one simple term: advertiser friendly. This has been a serious problem for wrestling content on YouTube, with the likes of everything struggling with it, including the leading wrestling channel in the world. I assumed that because it was a review of wrestling video games, that it would fly under the radar, but apparently not. What's worse is that it wasn't totally demonetized, as you can see here. Because of this, I was given no option for a real human to actually review the video and determine if ads should run on it. So no ads means no promotion from YouTube, means that a very small audience actually watched it after I killed myself for 2 weeks. Oh well, this video you've just watched will probably do better, so that's some hilarious irony, I guess.
The lesson is, never try.
Again, before I end, a huge thank you to the people who support the channel on Patreon. If you'd like to contribute and help videos at this level of quality occur more frequently, or just to see videos a few days earlier than YouTube, check out the Patreon page and consider pledging, because it really helps me out. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this video and the wrestling review itself if you watched it. Be sure to leave any questions with a comment down below, follow with liking, subscribing and sharing the video. I'm Square Eye Jack and I hope you have a great fucking day. Thanks for watching. Ooh yeah!